Obviously coming off the game the other day, we went 9 days in a row, practice, just the way the schedule fell, and then games. So we took a day off, which I thought was good. Had a chance to get together with some guys, which can be just as valuable as certainly, practicing in terms of the physical aspects this time of year. And then, had a really good workout yesterday. We've got one this afternoon. They're usually shorter this time of year, trying to keep them, physically and mentally fresh as best you can when you get to February. So they're shorter practices. Still hard. We go at it pretty good, but not quite as long. Thought response was good yesterday. Talked to them a little bit about, obviously, the game the other night. Really what I said to you afterwards, sometimes I'll say stuff and I'll watch it and I feel exactly the same way, or I might see something different. But I thought this one was, shot making. We could have had some possessions where I thought the ball should have moved a little bit better, but more often than not, we had the right guys shooting the ball and didn't make enough of them. The start, I didn't like, and they made some tough shots, but we didn't score during that stretch, and that kind of got us behind the 8 ball. We talked about that a little bit the other day. And then the rebounding, the second chance points, although, 19 of them resulted in 12 points. It was 12-6 differential because we were good on the glass too, 16. And in fact, it was dead even there with the offensive rebounds really until that last possession. But just too many for us from a defensive rebounding perspective. And although it only led to 12 points, I felt like the times they did score, the Hayes tip dunk, we were on a roll, and then all of a sudden we miss a block out and he gets a tip dunk. I just thought they were timely second chance points. Obviously you usually see more points off 19 than 12, but I just thought they were timely ones. So, we looked at, obviously the blockouts have been a big topic of discussion, after the game, meetings, yesterday in practice. We got to limit those, and we've done pretty well in that area. Defensive rebounding percentage has been something that's been the strongest for this team of any of the teams we've had. We didn't get it done in that area the other night. So those are kind of the things we talked about, what we saw. Not a lot different from what we discussed when I was with you guys after the game. In terms of heading into the Minnesota game, their defense reminds me a lot of the Penn State defense that I had a lot of respect for going into that game. Their length, their athleticism. Watkins was a shot blocker for Penn State. Lynch, shot blocker for Minnesota. Minnesota's second in the nation in block shot percentage. They're terrific at protecting the rim in and around the basket. They're athletic. They're long. They guard the ball well. And nationally, from a defensive perspective, they're one of the nation's best defenses. Very similar, as I said, as I felt like when we were heading into that Penn State game. So got a lot of respect for their defense. In terms of individual players, McBrayer's really improved. It's interesting watching him. It appears he must have had a great offseason. He's really improved in a lot of areas, much more efficient, has become a better player. Mason's kind of the head of the snake a little bit. And then Coffey, I think, is one of the more talented freshmen in our league, and we've got a lot of talented freshmen in our league. His efficiency for a freshman as a double-figure scorer, shooting over 50% on twos, 45% from three, is really, really impressive. And then Murphy and Lynch up front with their rebounding, their shot blocking, their athleticism. They bring Konate off the bench, Curry off the bench in the front court. Akeem Springs has really provided them as a fifth-year transfer from Milwaukee. I think with just watching him, he's a tough kid, makes open shots, really plays smart, has only had 9 turnovers in league play, playing predominantly the 2 for them. So, he's really helped them a great deal and is a good defender as well. So they've got good personnel, be a great challenge for us. The things I'm hoping, obviously, we've got to see some traction with, preventing second chance opportunities at the level that we did the other day. We got to move the ball a little bit better. And then, quite frankly, we've got to have a couple of our guys that are shot makers step up and make a couple, and I'm confident that they can do that. So those are kind of some of the things we're looking at heading into tomorrow's game. Questions?
Has in Richard Pitino's time there, is this team more reflective of the kind of stuff he wants to run personnel-wise?
Great question, Rob. Yeah, I would say yes. I don't coach his team. I just think in watching them, they're really talented. They're athletic. I think the thing that stands out to me is just their shot blocking and their athleticism and the way that they defend. They're very difficult to score on. Statistics show that, and you can see why watching them on film. So, I don't know. I mean, he's had some pretty good players over the time that we've, competed against him. But from an athletic standpoint, in my opinion, you'd have to ask him holistically with who they play, their length, their athleticism, their shot blocking. I mean, I think they're as good a team as Minnesota team as we played at that end of the floor for sure.
John, just where's your team at mentally? You get into the middle of a season, get a couple losses. Sometimes they can weigh on people. Just how are they handling
I'm sure, they're disappointed. I mean, they want to play better. I think we can play better. They understand that it's a small margin. We've talked a lot about that, whether it's the start of the game the other day, whether it's the last 4 minutes of the first half at Penn State when it was 8-point game with 3:53 to go till halftime. It's small. It's really just a small area of a game where, we've got to be able to take care of the ball, defend, and rebound. Now, I'd like for shots to go in every night, but I think being around the league as long as I have, especially when you start playing teams in February, Jeremy, and you're playing them for a second time in some cases, and the amount of video you have on teams, we've got good coaches and good players. It's hard to get easy baskets. But I think if you can take care of the ball and defend and rebound on a consistent basis, then you've got a chance. We've got some traction in some of those areas, but we still need to be more consistent with some of those things.
Because 4 of Minnesota's top 7 are new guys to the team. I mean, can you look back at last year at all, and as far as maybe what they might do, or is it just brand new kind of?
Yeah, it's a great question, Scott, because normally, as you would imagine, I'll watch all the games we played them from the previous year. And certainly, there are, a couple guys out there that are the same, and philosophically they do some of the same things, but I've noticed a lot of difference. Not that you can't take anything away from that. You certainly can, and it's helpful, and you can find certain trends and different things, but they're completely, you're exactly right, completely different team with a lot of different personnel.
There's a lot of high-profile big men in the league right now. Do you think Maverick? It seems like he's having a really good year for the most part. Do you think he's getting overlooked in that kind of stuff?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. He's gotten a lot better, obviously. It really started the last 13 games last year when he kind of got forced into that role. And he's just kind of built upon that. He'd be the first to tell you I'd like for him to rebound a little bit better. But his effect on the defense, or efficiency, his effect on offensive efficiency, his percentage he's shooting from the field. The other night he got us 2 inside-out threes that were great passes. He's very unselfish. He's smart. He screens well. He's really improved, obviously, a tremendous amount. And he's certainly in that breadth of guys, in our league that are very, very productive front court players. And, maybe he gets a little – maybe he does get a little bit underrated or undervalued. I know we certainly value him.
Coach, you talked about small areas of the game, and with Wisconsin, it was the beginning of the game. We're down 16-2. Overall, I know you said the defense played really tough, really hard. Did you feel like watching the film that it wasn't there maybe in the start of the game?
Yeah, maybe not quite as much bite on the ball, Derek, that we wanted to have, that we ended up, having for the bulk of the game. But, part of it was I don't know how many, they made some I think our closeouts could have been a little bit better, and we could have had a little bit more presence on the basketball. It made it a little bit tougher, but part of it is they made some shots. We blew a coverage early. We needed to have more support on Hap on a particular post touch that he had. But other than that, I mean, they made some shots, and give them credit. Koenig made big ones early off the bounce that were tough. Hap made a couple moves. Iverson makes a 3 in there when he had made 1 in all league play. It makes 2 in the game, 2 for 2 when he had made 2 the entire season. So give them credit. They made some shots, but I thought the biggest thing, Derek, 16-2, you could withstand that watching it like I watched. I didn't see a ton of defensive mistakes, but our offense just, we had 2 points. Obviously we don't want them to get 16 that quickly. And maybe we made one mistake there on the post deal, but we've got to, the first pass we throw hits the ball, hits the ground twice like you're skipping a rock. First 3 we get's an air ball. So, right now, I mean, it's interesting because, and part of it's probably because, obviously what we've shared with you, our defense is getting better right now. It's pretty obvious. You look at it statistically, you look at it on film. That's my instinct as I'm watching it. Offensively, we've got to be better. It's hard when we got to score more than we're scoring right now, be more efficient than we are right now. Part of it is shot making. Taking care of the ball's been good. So it's a matter of really, I think, being a little bit more patient on some possessions, and then making some shots in the case of the other night. As I said after the game, Morgan, Hill, J. Cole, I think shot around 30 of our 50 shots, and those guys have been pretty productive. What J. Cole shooting 42% from 3 in league games. Obviously Malcolm's, having a good year offensively, and Mav's shooting 58% in league games. So that's not a bad thing that those 3 guys were getting the shots. I just, I thought in watching it at times we took maybe a little bit quick once we got into half-court offense. Not a lot, but a few times. Then a game where there's 60 possessions, Derek, roughly when you play them, every possession matters.
I guess, what conversations, maybe, if any, have you had about avoiding slow starts? Are there things you can do differently at beginning of the games? Or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to get off to that type of start. We certainly didn't do that here against Michigan. We got off to a really good start. Iowa, I don't remember what it was, 10-0, 8-0. I don't know what it was. We got off to a great start there. I don't think necessarily, Scott, there's a magic formula other than the fact that the other day I thought defensively we made them take some difficult shots, and they made them, and we just didn't score enough. That's why the slow start occurred there. Earlier in the year I thought it was more defense. Right now our offense, we've got to improve offensively and continue to, grow defensively. We haven't arrived by any means, but we're playing that end of the floor better. I was very comfortable over the course of the 40 minutes the other night in the Wisconsin game, playing Wisconsin with the 40% and the 30% from 3 and the 57 points, and the execution of our schemes on that end gave us a chance to win. Our offense, when you shoot 20-some%, we've got to be better than that offensively.
John, when you talk to Malcolm, you can tell he's a little disappointed. Do you watch for when disappointment gets to be frustration, and how's he doing in terms of just mentally?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great point, Tup, because I talked to him. There's a big difference between disappointment and frustration. I use those 2 words a lot with them. And it'd be easy, to fall into frustration, but that doesn't do any good. If you get to where you're frustrated, it clouds your mind. You don't think as clearly, you don't play as well, and that's whether you're a coach, a media member, a basketball player, whatever that might be. So I've told him it's okay to be disappointed. The other night he did not play particularly well. He knows that. He's played better than that, and I'm confident he will play better than that. He didn't have one of his better games, and he was a little bit disappointed, but that's the competitor in him. Probably felt like he should have made a few of the. He maybe had as good a 3-point looks in a game as he's had in a long time. I mean, there were some where 2 of them literally where the guy had fallen down. I mean, there's nobody around, and he works hard. He's worked very, very hard, as have a lot of our guys, to, probably shoot it a little bit better than he shot the other night. And it just didn't go his way, but I've got great confidence in him, and I know he'll bounce back. And I always tell him it's okay to be disappointed when things don't go the way you want them to go, but you got to be careful getting into that frustration realm you're talking about, Tup, or discouraged, And that's easier said than done when you're their age. You're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, So that's our job, to continue to keep them focused on what they can control, what's in front of them, And again, it's okay to be disappointed and use that as motivation to play better and play the right way. But I think you're right. If you get into that other realm a little bit, it can affect you. So we'll continue to encourage him to be Malcolm. Malcolm's obviously an important part of what we do, and we need him to play better than he did the other night, and I believe that he will.
John, given what you just said, I know you had bigger expectations this year. How have you dealt with that, not getting frustrated?
I've tried to control, Jeremy, what you can control. There's been some things, and, we'll talk postseason on that, but, that you can't control. You can't. I mean, it just is what it is, So what we've got to do is continue to work every day to keep getting better, help our guys become better players, help our team get better. And that's what we've tried to control. At the end of the day, that's all you can do.
Scott asked about slow starts. You pointed out that you've had some fast ones.
Yeah.
I think you're going to rotate your basically 8 starters. You're going to put 3 new guys in at 17, no matter whether you're down by 10 or whether you're up by 10. Is that right?
Depends. The other night was a little bit different because I changed the lineup. And obviously that changed it a little bit. But we're looking at all that, Rob. It's a great question, how we sub, who plays with who, what groups are best together, what groups to stay away from, what groups really play well defensively together, what groups really play well offensively together. We're looking at all those things right now, as we should, to try to make our team better.
Generally speaking, on subs, especially early in the ball game, is it something you've pre-planned out as a coaching staff? Are you more reacting to what you're seeing on the floor?
Yeah, we'll know going into the game, Scott. We'll know. We'll determine, hey, who's the first guy we're going to bring off the bench at this position based on the game plan prior to the game, based on maybe practice, based on how guys are playing at the time. Now, does that change maybe once you get a little deeper in the first half or into the second half? Let's say, for example, fouls occur, and now that changes it. Let's say they made an adjustment that in their game plan, they did something completely different differently than they have at that juncture, and then we need to adjust and adapt to that. But those things aside, going into the game for sure, prior to it starting, we have a pretty good idea of who we're going to play at what position on the first go-round, and then be able to react instinctively based on game management from there.
And as follow-up with the players that have gotten significant minutes that don't appear in a game, is that usually a plan, say for injury or whatever? For example, Mike Thorne, didn't have minutes this last time around.
Yeah,
is that something you planned for going in? Or are you reacting to that?
I knew a little bit going into the game what our order of big guys were that we were going to play based on opponent, game planning, scheming, et cetera, et cetera. But that changes a little bit going into each game right now, especially with our front court.
John, you can only play so many guys in a rotation, but where are DJ Williams and Aaron Jordan at for you right now?
Well, obviously, right now those guys are, wherever they are in the number of minutes per game right now on, in our rotation, and we're playing the guys that we think, give us the best chance based on a particular game plan to play based on where they're at, where the other guys are, how they've practiced, how they've played, how the other guys have played. And, right now it's like any player, every player wants to play more. A buddy of mine the other day who's, coaching said to me, he said, I don't know if any year we've ever coached, John, that you don't have more than 1 or 2 guys that if they're honest are playing as much as they'd like to play, out of about however many you're playing year in, year out. That doesn't change. And I don't mind that, honestly. In fact, I prefer that. If a guy didn't care whether he played or not, I don't know if I'd be real interested in that, But that's kind of where it's at right now with those 2 guys. We're playing, anywhere from 8 to 10 right now in a given game, Jeremy, based on opponent and what we're planning. And obviously it's been, especially once you get past the minutes per game of 5 or 6 guys, once you get to about 7, in terms of minutes per game, that's been dynamic.
Have you updated the inspirational ladder for dates in February?
Yeah, to climb the ladder. Yeah, we've already done that.
I mean, you talked about wanting the offense to be better. is part of that maybe pace? Because early in the season you talked about playing a little faster, and do you feel like you're getting to that now?
Not really, Scott. We've got to. I want to play quicker than them. Now, the other night when you play them, this same buddy of mine who's played them a few times, he said it's hard to speed them up. You know when you play them, it's going to be somewhere in the 60s in terms of possession number. It is about every game they play, aside from some overtime games they've had. So, the other night's probably an outlier a little bit. But no question, I'd still like to play faster. Get especially Lucas and Tate, I think, are pushing the ball really hard right now. We've got to run harder. That's been something we've talked about. We've showed them on film more consistently, not only for post position, but also our wings have to run a little bit harder.
Coach, up here, a couple weeks ago, you said something interesting. You said you didn't want your guys to be front runners.
Yeah.
Where their defense is predicated off of seeing the ball go in the hoop. It feels like that happens way too often, and you're sort of in the situation you're in now. What have you seen from your team to make you believe that's going to change anytime soon?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just our defensive numbers. It's not even necessarily a subjective opinion. It's pretty factual. Our defense has gotten better. Prime example of that would be the other night when we shot 20%. If we would have been front runners the other night, there's no way in heck you're going to hold the top 10 ranked team in the country to 57 points, 40% shooting, 30% from three, and get 16 offensive rebounds. That's not going to happen. So they've definitely made a lot of progress in that area, and that was a concern of mine a while back. We've defended. I mean, we defended the other day, like I said, well enough to win against one of the best offensive efficiency teams in not only our league but the country. So I don't think that was the case the other day. I just think, again, bad start, second chance points, and shot making. That's what that one was.
Coach, you talked a lot about rotations. Looking at Kipper Nichols, how do you think his, athleticism, what he brings to the table has affected this team since he's been, a part of the team, been able to play? Yeah,
he's getting better, starting to figure some things out. That's basically how he's making the plays he's making for us right now is with he's got great toughness, he's got great motor. He's a good athlete. He's physically strong. So, the other day he just makes a play on a ball and just steals it and goes and lays it in. He made a couple deflections like that during the game. Offensive rebound effort where he keeps balls alive. Does he know completely what he's doing right now? No. But his effort, his motor, his toughness, his competitiveness are what allows him to be out there and help us. And he's getting, he obviously knows a lot more now than he did when he started. I think some of the game experience has really helped him. But I've been very pleased with him and his growth and improvement and excited about him moving forward.
Coach, you've seen 3 starts from Tijon. How do you see him progressing, and how is he living up to the expectations you have for your starting point guard? Yeah, defensively, obviously, he's been really good. I mean, he has a major impact on the game at that end with his ball pressure. And, the other night, he made a mistake, early on a Koenig pick and roll. But other than that, he fights and battles and, really keeps the ball in front. I think defensively for him, from where he started to now, is like, he's really come a long way. He affects our team on that end of the floor at a really high level. Obviously we all know he can pass and make guys better, and I thought he had a few the other night where he just didn't make them, that he made the right read that could have very easily been assist. I like the progress he's making. He's doing what we're asking him to do. He could finish a little bit better in and around the rim right now as he drives the ball down into the paint. And we've talked to him about that and shown him different things and different reads there and different, it's a little different than, where he played past last year when you're dealing with Big Ten front court players that are in and around the rim, So some of that we've got to get a little bit better with them. But all in all, a lot like Kipper, I like, what he's doing. He's more than anything, he's really affecting the defensive end of the floor for us. I've talked about our defense getting better, and it's not just him. I don't want to say he's the sole reason, but when you have a point guard and he's the front porch of your defense and he's able to climb into the ball a little bit and cause some duress and pressure and make you uncomfortable, that's pretty significant on that end of the floor.
And then obviously he has a knack for making guys better on the offensive end of the floor. So he's been solid. I think you'll even see more things from him moving forward, just like Kipper, as those guys get more game experience.